Well, baby, I'm on it with a bottle of wine and an old dirt road. Are you ready to go? Music Nation podcast. I'm your host, Jake Gill. We are with Chris Radaker James. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, very good. He's executive director at the Poncan Theater in Ponca City, Oklahoma. James, thanks for being on with us today.
I'm glad to be here.
Hey, give us a little background on you, James. Where'd you come from, and what are you doing?
Yeah, well, I have a history in theater. So I started as a performer, worked in Virginia, Branson, Missouri, Nashville, Tennessee. So I really spent a lot of time on stage. I went backstage after I fell in love with a company called Sight and Sound in Branson.
Okay.
And they didn't cast me in one of their shows, which happens all the time. You know, it's you audition every season, and sometimes there isn't a role for you.
Sure.
So I decided to stay with the company and work backstage. And sorry.
Oh, you're all right.
That's when I kind of fell in love with the backstage end of theater. And then while I was working, in a lighting crew for professional theater, I was contacted by a friend of mine in Ponca City, and he asked if I wanted to help run a theater. So I thought he was joking, and but turns out that he wasn't. I came for an interview, and things worked out really well. I kind of was a really good fit for me in this particular theater because it's a 95-year-old theater this year. It turns 95 in September.
Okay.
So the venue is gorgeous. It was built, designed by the Bowler brothers in 1927.
Oh, wow.
And has 760 seats. It's a gorgeous theater, and we're really lucky to have it in a smaller town like Ponca City.
Yeah, for sure. So what type of shows are you guys doing in Ponca?
Well, we're primarily a children's theater and a rental facility.
Okay.
We also show films every now and then. During the summer, we show films every Tuesday for free. And about once a month, we have a movie that will maybe cost like $5 to come and see, some of our more popular films. And then we have some other sponsored movies. The children's theater has shows about every other month.
Okay.
So they use the space a lot for their rehearsals.
Uh-huh.
And then we rent out for concerts. Most recently, we had like the Duttons from Branson, Missouri, and we often have comedians come in too. So we're a live venue, but only by request.
Okay, very good. What's your number one marketing strategy for the theater?
The marketing strategy. We have a tight budget, so we primarily use free means of marketing. I have a good relationship with a couple of radio stations that are actually housed in our theater. They use a portion of our theater. So as a part of that deal, I go on to the radio every Thursday morning and talk about the upcoming shows. I also have a good relationship with the newspaper, and they're very gracious to us. They don't charge us to put out ads. They will instead make some informative articles to talk about the theater and what's going on, and then also mention our events. So we have a very generous community here as far as like trying to get the word out about what's happening around town and the things that there are to do, because we want our locals to be entertained. I use a lot of social media. I'm currently working on boosting our social media programming so that we plan things out to, this is what's happening in a month, this is what's happening this week, and then a reminder on the day of. Facebook and Instagram are good for that. We're still trying to figure out something to do with TikTok.
Sure.
Because we're wanting to reach the younger generation. But TikTok makes it very difficult to advertise events because you never know when your TikTok is going to come up again. And it's going to seem really odd if you're advertising an event that happened 2 years ago.
Yep. TikTok is definitely not is purely organic right now, which has been good for artists like me. But when you're looking to advertise, yeah, it's a little difficult. You talked about that younger generation. What are some ideas that you have for the future to bring that younger generation in the door?
Part of it for us, because we can show films, is to do young and family-friendly films in the theater for free on Tuesdays, every single time we have a break from school. So it's not just in the summertime now. We do that during winter break, and we have fall break and spring break. We're trying to help create memories in the theater so that they'll want to come back, because that's what's kept the theater running, is the love of the theater from past generations.
Yep.
And I kind of have a church background. I was trained to be a reverend. And one thing that they talked about frequently is that you can tell how long a church is going to live by the age of the people in the church.
Yeah.
And if you don't have young kids running through the halls of the church and have issues with a commotion in church from, the young ones in the audience, then you have a problem.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is with historical theaters as well.
Okay.
We have to have young people coming in. And that's part of the reason why we are primarily a children's theater right now too, is building those memories and giving the children time in the space so that they will rise up and be the next adults that help keep this theater alive and entertaining locals.
Fantastic. Are you a nonprofit organization as a theater itself?
Yes, we are a 501c3.
What are some major fundraisers that you guys do there in the Ponca area?
Well, really, our fundraising efforts were kind of non-existent. I hate saying that, because we've always had board members that really love the theater and are giving their best. Our current board is very financially savvy. They're very wise about trying to create campaigns. And they surprised themselves, actually. Last year in 2021, we desperately needed to replace our roof because we were getting leaks all over the building. And we knew that if we just patched it up, that it wasn't, we're going to keep patching it for years and years. And we really just needed the new roof. It was going to be over $100,000. So we kind of just set out, and the board, I can't really say we, because I was operating the theater, and the board really took off with it. They made films like little movies that we put on Facebook. We put them before all of our events. And then we talked with, the newspaper down the street, and we've talked up on the radio about our Raise the Roof campaign. Every time someone walked in the doors, if they were making a purchase at the register, we would ask, would you like to help us raise the roof? And we ended up raising, I think, almost $50,000 more than we needed for the roof campaign. This year, we're doing a Save a Seat campaign. So we are replacing our chairs at the end of this month. And we have about $40,000 worth of chairs still to sell. We've made just enough to go ahead and install the chairs. And now everything that we make off of the seat sales or seat donations is going to go towards other things in the buildings, like plumbing. So no, absolutely. Your community's really jumped on board there.
It's interesting that you mentioned pre-roll and post-roll commercials there at your movies, because we've talked to some other theaters, and we always in one of these episodes by, what are some areas that you want to learn from other theaters that are going on there. And so you saying that was in the back of my head when I was talking to other people. I'm like, wow, you're showing movies on a weekly basis, and you have their 100% attention in that moment. And it's great that you guys are utilizing that. And that's super smart. That's super smart.
I mean, before I came, we weren't like other theaters. There was nothing shown before the film. It was just a blank screen. And number one, that's not entertaining to our guests.
Right.
It's not promoting future events that they can come and enjoy, things they can get excited about before they're watching the film. And it gives us another opportunity to make more money. I have I think 4 companies this year that have donated funds to help us bring the movies to our theater, because we have to pay rights. And in exchange for that, we put their logo up on the big screen. And it gives our local community an idea. These are the kind of companies that are helping our community, that have our best interests at heart, and in turn they go out and purchase from them.
Well, one of the things that as a performer that we've noticed, if we're playing in a theater versus a club or a bar or a fair or a festival, a theater, you have their 100% attention the whole time. So even if they're on their phone, they have this giant screen or this giant stage in front of them. They're going to hear and they're going to pick up what's going on. Whereas if they're in if you're doing a fundraiser in a park or, a fair or festival or whatever, there's so many distractions going on. But the advantage of a theater is that you have their 100% dire attention. And it's great that you can capitalize on that. So I hope that our listeners will really, really pick up on that as it goes through there. So Christopher, I like to have a little bit of fun. You've got quite an extensive background. Give me 2 things. So what is your all-time favorite concert that you've ever been to?
Oh, that's a good one. I told you I was planning to become a reverend at one point. So it should be no surprise. I loved Hillsong Worship. When I saw them in Oklahoma City. That was really cool to see.
Now give me your all-time favorite theatrical production that you've seen.
Theatrical production. As far as design-wise, I would say that I love the design of a show called Jesus in Branson, Missouri right now. It's a sight and sound show. It's one of my favorite theaters in the world. But favorite performance, A Little Night Music on Broadway was probably my favorite. Bernadette Peters was in it.
Very, 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 very cool. Well, Chris, thank you for your time today. Just thank you for kind of sharing with us what's going on in Oklahoma, in Poncan City, and the exciting things that you guys are doing there, and basically giving us a great example of how other theaters across the nation can replicate what you're doing. And I'm glad to see you on board there, and good luck to you guys in the future.
All right, thank you.
Well, baby, I'm on it with a bottle of wine.